I'm John McFadden, and I'm with the Tennessee Environmental Council. We're a statewide nonprofit conservation organization. Our mission is to educate and advocate for the conservation and improvement of Tennessee's environment, our communities, and public health. One of the things that we know about natural resources is that they are the backbone of our economy, our communities, and our quality of life. Tonight, we're in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, with some folks from the city of Murfreesboro, Robert Haley, the Stormwater Director here, Cynthia Allen from Middle Tennessee State University, and their environmental engineer, and some students and members of the Stones River Watershed Association. Back in the early 2000s, I was a student and teaching at MTSU, and I was driving down Old Las Casas Pike. I lived in Lebanon. I'd come down Canesville Road because it was a pretty drive, and then on to Old Las Casas. And as I was driving into Murfreesboro, I noticed that the creek beside Old Las Casas Pike was full of algae. It was just incredible how much algae there was there. And I stopped and took a picture because I wanted to have that for reference. What causes that is nutrients, fertilizers coming off our yards, animal waste, a number of different things can cause it, but it's mostly fertilizers and animal waste products. But anyway, last year, the Environmental Council, through the Maddox Foundation, was awarded a restoration grant to work with Middle Tennessee communities. And because I knew of the great work that Robert Haley was doing, and I had a relationship with MTSU, I came down and started talking with them about a creek in the community. And one of the first creeks that they mentioned was Garrison Creek, also known as Big Creek, here in the community. It runs along Old Las Casas Pike and up North Rutherford Boulevard behind the Krogers. Well, that was the creek that I had taken the picture of back in the early 2000s. So I was really excited that they would bring that out. The plan that we came up with to work on that creek to try to restore it was to first start planting trees along it and for the city to stop mowing the creek. Well, the city stopped mowing. We organized a project which turned out really well. We had about 89 volunteers, came out on February 4th last year. We planted about 2,000 trees that day. And the majority of those volunteers came from MTSU. They were MTSU students. The weather was really dicey. It was actually raining, misting. It was cold. At 11 o'clock, it just opened up on us. I mean, just started pouring down rain. The poor students were coming to me in droves going, "Are we going to quit now?" And I just asked them, "Are you cold? Are you wet?" And they all responded, "Yes, we are. So why should we quit now?" And we just kept planting until we got all those 2,000 trees in the ground. Well, now we've been through the summer. And of course, we had a terrible drought this summer with temperatures over 100 degrees. And we lost a number of those trees, somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 to 90% based on our cursory reviews of looking at that site. And so on October 16th, we're going to go in again with funding from the Maddox Foundation of Middle Tennessee, and we're going to plant some much bigger trees there this time. And the city has come up with some diagrams that kind of show you the planting plan. And what we were really focusing on, and Robert, I would ask you to join me at this point. You want to help talk about this. You know, one of the most important things that you can do for any creek or any stream is plant trees on the creek bank. They filter out pollutants. Those trees and the tree roots filter out pollutants. They hold the creek bank in place, keeping it stable, keeping sediment and mud from going back into the creek from the creek bank. They provide habitat for wildlife, which enhances our quality of life. Birds and that sort of thing start coming into those areas. And importantly, for those of you who live close to this stream, when we restore a stream or a stream buffer, property values next to the creek, closer to the creek, are higher. They begin to go up as a result of those forested areas. Those trees will shade and cool your property if they're on the south, east, or the west side, which that's going to help cut your cooling costs in the summer. So there's a lot of other benefits to this project and restoring any creek, benefits to our society, to our communities, and to our economy. So Robert, I'll turn it over to you for a minute to tell us kind of exactly what we're planning on doing and how we're doing it.
Okay, I'll give the city side and perspective to what John's been saying. And we are excited about having trees planted and vegetation growing along this creek. This is a stream that's noted in state records. They have occasionally come in every 5, 6, 7 years and assess streams in the Murfreesboro area. This one assessed was impaired because of siltation and no poor habitat, no streamside cover. So we're excited not to be mowing it anymore, and we would welcome your comments on that, because we're learning as we're letting this grow, the vegetation grow. So we'll be planting, as John said, more trees on the 16th, and we expect probably at least a couple of Saturdays after that, maybe later October, November, or December, if that sounds, what else can I say as the city? This, we would, of course, like this stream to come off the impairment list. By the way, this flows to Bushman Creek, also known as Bushnell, which flows into the East Fork Stones River. The city draws, it's the water that we treat for city drinking water supply from East Fork Stones River. So this is headwaters of the river from which we draw our drinking water.
And I was just going to say, that's a really important point, in that the majority of our drinking water collection system are creeks like this, these little small headwater streams that you see out there. Even if it's a little wet weather conveyance beside your driveway or beside the road, that's a critical part of our drinking water collection system. And the other thing that I would point out about this diagram, and it shows it nicely, is that what we've tried to do in the landscaping plan, or the design of what types of trees go where, we've put the trees that love the water closer down to the creek, but we've also used some native ornamental trees along the upper edge, so that what you see along this restoration area is redbuds and staghorn sumacs, as well as some really nice oaks. The Shumard oak is one that we've planted there. We'll also be planting some Virginia pines. Well, we planted Virginia pines in the winter this last year. So we've tried to make sure that the edge of this is something that really adds to the beauty and aesthetics of your community. And then I would make one other comment about the mowing. I was down there the other day where they've not been mowing, and there's a huge difference between the life. If you just go stand next to it, it is full of life. I'm talking about crickets and little small insects and things like that, which really are food for the birds. There's habitat for some of the nesting birds down there now, the birds that nest on the ground. So there's a lot of things that are changing about that area. And I would say about any of the restoration projects that we've worked on, and that is that it's a transition from being cleanly scalped to having trees and vegetation there. It's a transition. And transitions are oftentimes like fruit. They're a little bit bitter before they're ripe, right? But when they're ripe, they're very, very sweet. So there's a little bit of that to be said there. So, and I didn't make reference, Robert, do you want to, I mean, the big map, I should have made reference early on.
Oh, just trying to think. Some of this is city property where we've put trees. Some is private property. And I don't know, just for those of you that might be interested, there are some water and sewer lines in these right-of-ways. And we took that into account in the different trees that we planted and where. So there are some logistics that have been involved.
Right. As well, there's a power line all down here along North Rutherford. Just for reference, this is the Kroger shopping area. Here's the creek behind Kroger, and then upstream and downstream. So, but there's the power lines that are running along North Rutherford, and there was one place where we couldn't plant trees because there were power lines, and we're trying to plant around those. There's actually power line safe trees, and so we're trying to plant those in and around the power lines.
Exactly. So we would like to see a lot of volunteers come out on the 16th.
Absolutely.
And those other days.
The other thing that, you know, that I would say, now, Robert, you correct me if I'm wrong, or let me just ask you the question. You represent the MS4.
Yes.
So you are tasked by the state and EPA to get these waters off of the impaired streams list. The state calls it impaired, and Robert calls it, and that is technically correct. Okay. I would just say polluted. Okay. But what that really means is impaired for one or more of its designated uses. The state gives each stream a designated use. Mm-hmm. But my question, Robert, is how does a project like this affect you as an MS4 and your responsibilities back to the state and for the Clean Water Act?
Well, we are charged with, and the MTSU representatives here know this well, with educating citizens, residents of Murfreesboro about how to reduce pollution in stormwater and generally pollution of surface water. So this area, since this is an impaired stream, we really want to target, you speak of nutrients and perhaps nutrients coming from neighborhoods, practices of use of fertilizer and pesticides. We want to target the folks here and reduce any pollutants. So I think that's sort of getting at your question. And we want to clean the water, and in fact it affects me in that we report on it. I mean, we sort of have to do we have to do that.
Okay, so it's part of your permit responsibilities, right, exactly, to do restoration projects like this, as well as do education work like this with the community. So, yeah, we really want to have as many people come out as possible and help us on the 16th, and we will have some additional days. I think we'll have an additional community meeting maybe after the 16th to engage more of the community, especially the residential sector of the community. But we just want to invite everybody to come out that wants to come out. And I apologize for looking at the map and not looking at y'all. I wasn't making eye contact with you, which is not a good technique for speaking. So I got that in speech class. So I'm just going to go ahead and put it out there. But yeah, we just really encourage everybody to come out that they can. It's October 16th from 9 to 1 or 12:30, and we'll be having lunch right at 1 o'clock. We're going to meet up in the Kroger's parking lot out towards the edge, the front edge. You'll see we'll have a tent out there. You can find registration information on our website, on the Environmental Council's website at tectn.org. That's tectn.org. Or you can contact myself, John McFadden or Robert.
There'll be information, or there is on our website.
So.
And on MTSU's.
Yeah, so hopefully it'll be easy for folks to register, and we really do need folks to register so we know how many are coming, so we know how many shovels to have, as well as how much food we're going to need, and drinks and whatnot. And we encourage everybody, if you come out, if you have a shovel, bring it. We'll have some extras, good pair of boots or work shoes, as well as work gloves. We'll have extras, but if you've got them, that'll mean our pair can go for somebody else who doesn't have a pair. So if you can remember to bring those things. We'll actually be planting the trees, we'll be mulching some of the trees, and we'll be watering the trees. So we're going to have plenty to do that particular day. And we're going to try to put in 250 trees in that 4-hour period of time. So we need all the volunteers we can get.
I'm Cynthia Allen with MTSU, the Middle Tennessee State University Stormwater Program. And we wanted to also add what some of the target areas that we're focusing on. We work with the city of Murfreesboro with Robert Haley, and we're lucky to work with John so that we can get the trees for this area. But this is a targeted education program, and that's important because we need citizens out here participating. Robert, for the city of Murfreesboro and for MTSU, we have 6 areas in this permit that were required, and 2 essential areas are public education and public participation. And so the zones that we're targeting is the Garrison Cove subdivision, and we've targeted some of these apartment complexes that are down besides. This is Kroger's, again, and this is Las Casas Pike, and this is North Rutherford Boulevard. So we went out and talked to the community. It's hard to reach every single resident, so this is why we're trying to talk to you today, because if you're in this area, we really need your support for this to be successful. We want to make sure that everybody understands what the project is, what's going on, and what your actions contribute in making the success of this. So again, like John and Robert mentioned, it was the nutrients and the fertilizers. We've seen tremendous success already in the loss of the algae that was growing, and like they said, the habitat and the animals that are living there. But this can't be successful unless the public participates, and that's the most important thing that we want to draw from this today. We can educate all day long, but if we don't get the public out there participating in planting these trees and the everyday actions like leaks and drips from your automobile, or excessive fertilizer use, or especially if you're along right next to the creek, mowing to the creek bank, if this is on your property, try and leave a little bit of that vegetation untouched so that it allows this to filter out. We didn't talk about this creek on the back side, but these all flow and go in to, is it Bushnell Creek that you'd said? So this is Garrison, where we're trying to do the riparian, but on the back side of Garrison Cove, it's the same thing. So if you're in this area, we're really trying to reach out to you today and say, please participate in this. And if you've got any questions, you can contact us at mtsu.edu/stormwater. My number is 898-2660. You can call with questions. Like I said, we work real closely with the city, but we've got to work closely with our public. So we really want you guys to come and participate in this event. It's October 16th. It's from 9 to 1. We'll even feed you, so come on out.